Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting podcast and show. I'm so excited today because we have a returning guest. His name is Christopher Mahan, and he is the author of Parental Leadership: 7 Principles to Lead Your Teen in the Digital Age. Welcome, Chris. Welcome back. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining
No,
today.
that's great.
Oh,
No, it was the last one was good. This one's going to be great, and I appreciate you having me back on.
I'm so happy we're going to be talking about teenagers and work. So
Yes.
let's get right into it. Okay, so
All
my
right.
first question is, why do you feel so many teens and even young adults are afraid of getting a job or even growing up?
This is something that's been happening for a couple decades as parents have been doing more for their kids and letting their kids do less for themselves. We now have an epidemic on our hands when it comes to young people wanting to go to work or afraid to do something on their own. And this is a problem that I've been seeing for the last decade. I talk about it in my book, and I see it every day with the kids that I work with, the parents that I work with. And essentially, what it comes down to is this: parents have taught their children to be afraid of making their own choices. So there's no autonomy for their kids. They cannot self advocate for themselves. When it comes time to do something as a young adult, such as applying for a job, looking at schools, or even just thinking about taking the next general life steps of getting a license for your car to drive, things like that, young people are scared. And I don't mean like 14, 15. I'm talking 18, 19, 20, 22, 25 year olds. Many of them are afraid to take that next natural step into adulthood. And what has happened is parents have coddled them for so many years that now that they're older and parents are saying, wait a minute, you got to go get a job, you got to go find something to do, you got to get out of the house. They have not taught their young people how to do this from day one. And all of a
Mm,
sudden they say, well, now you got to go. You're 18. I want you out. You're 22. What are you going to do? I'm tired of paying for your bills. You got to pay for your own phone.
mm,
So what's happened is the fear of the unknown has taken over for young people because so often in the past, their parents have been the one to step up for them, speak for them, do for them. I've actually had parents go to job interviews with their 18, 19, or 20-year old and try and advocate to a supervisor or an HR person to hire their kid, and the kid's sitting right there. I'm like, you can't do that. This is why we have so many stereotypes, negative stereotypes for young people today when it comes to working. And then when the young people get frustrated, the parents don't get mad at themselves or their kid, they get mad at the workplace, they get mad at the supervisor, they get mad at the expectations the society has for young people. It's not fair to the young person. It makes them feel worthless. It makes
mhm.
them feel like they can't do something on their own, and it enables the parent to continue this cycle of hovering. I know there's a lot
Right.
of words that we call this, whether it's what is it, uh, snowplow parenting or helicopter parenting, or
Yeah.
there's all these little nuances every day that we call it. But basically, parents have to step off. They have to allow their children to feel the pain to move forward. They have to allow them to make mistakes to learn to move forward. And this is something that my generation had to do. I know that young people hate hearing that. Well, in your day, it was fine. But really, we did have to do things that weren't always fun, that were a little scary, but we had to learn that we could do it. And in a psychological term, this would be like self-efficacy, which
Mm,
is different than self-confidence. And we have not allowed children to build their innate feeling of self-efficacy, meaning if there's a problem, I can fix it. If there's an obstacle, I can figure a way around it. Parents have been in there, playing that go between for so long that now young people are really a pain in the butt in the workplace. And this is hurting them and it's hurting our future workforce throughout the United States, probably also in Canada and throughout Europe, because this is a global problem, not just here in the States.
Okay, so I'm curious. I hear everything you're saying. I understand um, parent fear. But I'm wondering, what do you think? Where is this parent fear coming from? Is this from COVID? Like, are people
No,
more afraid because of COVID,
no.
or is this a something that has been going on for a while?
This has been going on before COVID was even a thing. This is something I've been seeing for well over 10 years.
Okay.
And I worked with young people directly well before COVID. This is a problem that's been going on for decades. We can make COVID an excuse. We can say that that's a reason for it, but it's not the case. COVID made things more visible because everybody was, confined for so long and at home and different things. And then the fear that COVID created added to this problem, but the problem was already there well before COVID. And
Okay.
in fact, this problem has been going on for so long that I have a whole list of stereotypes prior to COVID, negative stereotypes about young people. And if you look at the parenting behaviors for the last 15, 20 years, even maybe 25 years, you can see that COVID just made things more available to understand what's going on, but it's always been there. Um, I would like to think it was just in the last couple of years, but this has been a problem that's been festering for a very long time. So these
Mm.
kids that are now 20, 22, 23, they've been allowed to have this behavior on them with their parents when they were 4, 5, 6, coming up through elementary school, coming up through sports leagues, coming up through high school. So no, COVID did not start this problem at all.
Okay. I think it's really important for parents to understand that when we overdo for our children, they have learned helplessness. They're
Yes,
like, somebody else is going to do it. I don't have to do it. And then the other part is that we are actually affecting their self-esteem because we're giving them the message that they can't do it. And so we have to step in and do it for them. And that is so damaging, right? They're actually
100%.
damaging their children by
Yeah.
overdoing and not allowing our kids to grow up, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
and and yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt you. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, like, I think we have to do it step by step in the stages that they're ready for. Like even like toddler, okay, they can dress themselves now. Yeah, they can choose their own clothes. Yeah, they can decide what they want to bring for lunch. Like we have to do it in stages, right?
Right.
And continue that, continue letting go. Because our job is not to contain them. Our job is to help them to grow up, right?
Yes. And Vygotsky was great in that with his childhood development idea with scaffolding. And I talk about this quite a bit. I talk about it in the book. I talk about it in my podcast. Scaffolding was his way. He and Piaget kind of had some ideas that were very similar, but Vygotsky was all about you teach them a little bit, let them do their thing, step back, go to the next level, do their thing, step back. And as they progressively go up, like the scaffold, they're learning. And as they're learning, they're building self confidence. They're building the ability to think and problem solve and fix things
Yes.
on their own. What you just said is 100% true. When we do everything for our kids, we are damaging their innate ability to think. And there's a big push right now with free play and how that's been taken away. Free
Mhm.
play is another big thing, and it's a great learning tool. We took that away years ago.
Mhm.
Dr. Peter Gray talks about it. It's also another great book, The Anxious Generation. It's a great book if you can get that.
Mhm.
And we have taught our children that they're not capable
Yes.
because we as parents want to do everything. Maybe we have our own insecurities, maybe we have our own issues we're trying to overcome from our own childhood. Who knows? Trauma runs very deep with a lot of different areas. But the thing is, we're teaching our children to be a victim. We're
Yeah.
teaching them that can't is their first response when something doesn't go their way.
Yeah.
When I work with young people, the two things I tell them, you cannot say can't or I can't, and you cannot say disability because
Mhm.
everyone has abilities of some kind. It's just a matter of taking what you have and making it a strength. When you use those as a crutch or a way to make excuses, they will never advance. I know
Yeah.
35-year-olds that still will not find a job. And their parents in their 70s are like, what am I going to do with my kid? He's 35 years old. Well, you created this mess. You created this mindset, this fixed mindset in your child at 14, 15, 20, 25, that when there's a problem, you're going to fix it. You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly.
we see this with kids of all backgrounds. We see it with uh, kids that have great potential,
Hmm.
but because of this fixed mindset and this victim mentality,
Hmm.
they stop, and
Yeah.
someone comes in and fixes it for them, and they know what's
Yeah.
going to happen. And now we have a problem because parents are tired of always fixing, and now they put all the blame on their kid, whatever age that person may be, 25, 15, 30, whatever it is. And now you have a conflict problem with the
Yes.
parents and the young person. So that's a whole nother issue to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I always remember Dr. Phil saying spoiling is the most incessant form of child abuse. That always
absolutely.
stuck with me because we're spoiling our kids when we're doing everything for them, right? We're not
Everything.
allowing them to grow. So, oh, I love
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And
Number two,
growth is very, very important. They have to
I
have
know.
growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. You got to have growth.
Uh, exactly. Exactly. Okay. What can parents do to help prepare their teen for the workforce?
Perfect. I love that question. I talk about this in the book as well. And people will say, well, my kid's too young to start working. My kid is afraid of people. My kid has social anxiety. Again, they label all these things. I think we
Hmm.
talked about this in the last podcast.
Yes.
I have a whole chapter on why we don't label, but these parents will build and build and build this storyline of why their kid can't do something. So what I tell them is at any age, if your kid can speak, can pick something up, can help, they can volunteer. You can put your children into volunteering situations with you, whether it's through a church, their school, create anything to help them learn these skills, these transferable skills of talking to other people, looking
Hmm.
people in the eye, having that confidence of knowing that they can complete a task or work with a group. One of the big problems with young people today is I don't like people. People scare me. Well, when that happens, the parent immediately says, my daughter can't work around people. My daughter has social anxiety. So they're continuing this belief. When you get your young people into volunteering, they are working with new people, they're working in a group, they're completing a task in
Yeah.
the best way, the very, very best way to get the endorphins going, to feel good about yourself and to get out of this depressive state is to help others through service. I
Yes.
talk about this all the time in my leadership talks to young people. In my leaders acronym, the S is service, and I talk about volunteering. This is
Great.
so important because it shows them that, oh, I can take these glasses and clean them just right and help people see whatever silly thing it may be.
Yeah.
But through service, through volunteering, you're teaching your kids through the scaffolding method and through self advocating for themselves and to helping other people and contributing, which is huge. As social creatures, we have to contribute, and through growth because they're learning how to do things incrementally. That's also important. You're teaching them these skills so when they go into a classroom, when they go into a job setting, they already know that they can do something because they've been
Right.
doing it for years. That's how you help them.
Yeah. I'm 100% in agreement. I think parents need to understand that when you're working through mental health, service actually helps mental health because it gets you out of your head and it
Mm-hmm.
gets you involved in your life, right? The worst thing for
100%.
mental health is isolation. The worst thing
Very
is,
much so.
right? Is just not getting engaged in life, feeding into the anxiety, right?
And
So,
that's what parents are doing when they say, "Oh, here, little Johnny, here's your phone or here's your iPad," and
mhm,
they go off into their room and they become isolated. They're not learning social skills. They're not
right.
learning coping skills. They're not learning how to deal with other people. So they become fearful of normal everyday life experiences. And this is hurting not just the family dynamic because it causes stress within the family itself, but it's hurting millions of people that would be going into the workforce, and not just the workforce, even just our society in general. How do you deal with people? How do you cope with problems? We not to get into this subject, but we talk about the mind of a school shooter or the mind of a potential assassin, and they're all
Mhm.
under 25 years old. They all have a lot of the same traits and characteristics. But if you back up and go a little further up the river and see where this all started, you can see that this has been coming for years and years and years and years. So these very simple things of just
Yes.
allowing your children to learn on their own and to grow and experience life, to make mistakes, to grow, make mistakes and grow. This is what builds character.
Yes.
This is what
And
builds their
confidence.
their confidence and their
Yes.
self-resiliency and their self-esteem. And
Hmm.
we have taken that away.
Yeah.
You talk about family trauma, you talk about childhood trauma a lot,
Hmm.
and I think one of the worst things we can do to young people is to take away their sense of self when they never get to know who they are and they never get to experience the joy of overcoming a problem on their own.
Hmm.
That to me is very traumatic.
Yeah.
I think that's a horrible thing we're doing to people.
And I think what you said about exposure, like our job as parents is to expose our kids to lots of different things so that
Hmm.
they can know who they are. If they are in their room gaming 24/7 and they never get out, how do they figure out who they are?
They
They're just
can't.
stuck in this virtual world, right?
It's a almost like an emotional prison because
Mhm.
the idea of going out into the world and talking to people and doing things is so scary because they can't control it. One of the things I talk about too is personal power. Everybody wants a sense of personal power. And when you're doing something for someone all the time, you're not allowing them to experience that and have that sense of autonomy to have their own sense of personal power. So the gaming becomes that for them. That's why they
Yes,
love to level up. They love to do all these things because they're getting something out of it.
right.
This is why young people, again, not to go too far into this, but this is why they become, uh, they self-harm. They're looking for some self-control and some power in their life. When you're doing everything for them, even going to job interviews, even telling them, what job you should have.
Mhm.
I work with kids from all different backgrounds and cultures. And one of the things that I've discovered in the last couple of classes I've been teaching is that when you come from say an Indian culture or a Latin culture or
Mhm.
there's certain expectations on those young people based on their culture. So
Right.
I asked a young boy the other day, he's Indian, and he chose computer science over being a doctor because his dad was in computer science. And I
Mhm.
said, "Well, did you really choose that?" And he's like, "Well, his quote, in the Indian culture, you do what your parents tell you to do and you like it." I
Right.
thought, wow, that's how. I said, "Do you like computers?" He's like, "Yeah, it's coding. I like it." But I got this sense that if he could have chosen something else, maybe that would have been, but he couldn't. So it got me
Yeah.
thinking, how many young people today are told what you're going to do?
Yeah.
And then if you don't like it, too bad. I mean, can you imagine having a life like that? It'd be terrible.
Our job, like as parents, our job is not controlling and telling our kids what to do. Our job is to foster
Right.
their likes, their interests, their passions, foster them choosing their lives. We don't
Yes.
choose their lives. That's so unhealthy. That is so controlling, right? And I understand the cultural aspect, the pressure, right? I get that. But I just feel we have to reframe in our mind what is good for our kids. And maybe what we want is not good for them, right?
That's
Because they end up in time at times like that when you are so controlled, that's when you end up with depression and mental health
yes.
issues down the road because you never had a choice, you never had a voice, you never got to do what you wanted to do, what was your passion, right?
And
So
those are the things I keep interrupting. I'm so sorry because I'm just excited what you're
it's okay.
saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, and when I work with young people today, I ask them, first thing I ask them is, what is your goal? What is your dream? And I can tell you that for the last 10 years, that answer has always been, I don't know. I've never thought about it. No one's ever asked. I thought, man, what a terrible thing. Like you're 18, 19 years old and no one's asked you at all what you think you might like to do or what your passions are. That to me is almost like unheard of because when I grew up, all my parents did was allow us to explore ideas and different things, and they never questioned it. At one point, I wanted to be an Indian, because we had horses. At one point, I wanted to be a police officer. At one point, I wanted to play center for the LA Lakers. Not going to happen.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
they allowed me to have this
Yes.
idea and doing things. But what they didn't do was stifle me to think, or anyone in my family, to think about what we could do.
Right.
And when you're young, you have all kinds of ideas, but that's how you get the what I call it priming the mind for motivation. You're giving them a spark, a little bit of energy to then go forward. And what we've
Yes.
done to young people for decades now is we've stifled that. We've taken their
Mhm.
energy and squashed it. We've taken their ideas and told them they're dumb. We've taken their goals and told them they'll never happen. So
Mhm.
now that they're of working age, college age, and they don't know how to move forward out
Mhm.
of fear, out of just not knowing, then we say, well, how come? Why aren't
Mhm.
you doing this? You should know how to do this. And now there's that anxiety because they feel bad about themselves.
Mhm.
And it's just a horrible cycle that
Yeah.
starts very, very young.
Yeah. That's like one of the number one questions I ask my students is, what is your dream? What do you want to do? What's your passion? If you could be anything you want in the world, what would that be? And then when they tell me, oh, my parents want me to be this or my parents want me to be that, I'm like, hey, it's because your parents aren't living their dream. Your parents
Correct.
aren't living their passion, but you can choose. You can live your passion, right? That's
Yes.
that's the dialogue I have with young people.
That's a great dialogue to have. And like I said, I've been doing it for a long time, and I follow what you do and I love what you do because I think you're gonna have a lot of the same mentality when it comes to helping young people grow into who they're supposed to be.
Yes.
And I tell young people that, you know, if if you don't know what your dream or passion is, what do you feel? Do you feel
Right.
like you could do something? And so you have to kind of coax it out of them. And I tell them, I truly believe that we have a dream or passion from day one. We may not know it until we're 18 or 20 or 25 or whatever, but there's something in you that you want to do. My brother knew at age 8 that he wanted to work in movies, 8 years old.
Work where?
And I've Yeah, he 8 years old. He knew he wanted to work in film and be
Um,
a monster creator, a special effects guy at 8 years old.
wow.
So I asked him one time, I think I asked him my film book, if you couldn't have done this, what would you have done?
Yeah.
And he's like, I have no idea. This is all this it consumed me. And it did. We grew up, we made movies, we made face casts and all these different things. And because he knew at
Great.
such an early age what he wanted to do. And at 11, I started to figure out what I kind of wanted to do
Yeah.
as far as film and things. And of course, it changed a little bit. And as life got older, or I got older in life, I discovered that I liked helping people. And that's how I
Yes.
discovered psychology and behavioralism, different things.
Yeah.
And so for me, my passions have always been helping people find their truth, if you will, to find
Mhm.
their goal and to help them get there. I love
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
So when I
We-
hear these kids today that are so depressed and angry, I'm like, how? How could you be depressed? You got this great life ahead of you. How is that
Yeah.
possible?
I think as parents, like with the parent leadership part, uh, I just like I'm a firm believer that we're born or we have gifts. We're born with gifts. And we cultivate those gifts, right? As we are growing up and being exposed to things, and getting out of our comfort zone, right? Uh,
100.
but these gifts are meant to be used uh, in our lives on Earth. And it's a shame if you don't use those gifts, right? And as parents, we could be saying, you need to your job is to discover what your gifts are and use them.
And that's
That's
you
the
said it better than
passions.
I did. Yes, that's
Yeah,
exactly. Oh my gosh, I feel bad to keep jumping on you, but it's what you just said was much better than how I said it. But that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that
yes,
we have innate gifts from the day one. I believe that
yes,
100%. And if we as parents don't foster those and allow kids to explore and do different things,
yeah,
and we may not always like what they're doing at 8 or 9 years old, but again, I wanted to be an astronaut at one time. I wanted to
yeah,
be a police officer like my dad was for a while. I mean,
yeah,
then I wanted to be a lawyer because I liked the TV show. I
yeah,
forget. forget what law show it was, but I thought being a lawyer would be cool.
Yeah.
And so we go through these things, but eventually we figure it out.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's something we can do. I also tell people that even if you don't know it at 18, that's okay because life is about growth. It's about change. It's about evolving as
You
you
can
get
change
older.
your mind. You
Absolutely
can
can change
you can
your mind.
change your mind many times.
And if it feels good, and if it feels like it's something you can do, then try it.
Yes.
My dad always used to tell us, I don't care if you're a ditch digger, just be the best ditch digger you can be, but try
Yes.
it. Do what you got to do. So
Yeah.
his expectations weren't be this, it was just be the best for you. And that
Yes.
openness allowed us to just explore all kinds of stuff.
That's so
And
good.
I think that one of the gifts that he gave us was the ability to just explore, just think of the
Yes.
possibilities. Don't
Yes.
limit yourself.
Right.
And, you know, it's something I tried to give to my two sons. Like, don't limit
Yes.
yourself. Try
Yes.
have multiple streams of income, have to do
Yes.
different things. Be an entrepreneur, think differently, just use every day to the best of your ability. And that's what allows them to overcome and to be resilient and
Yeah.
to think of their expectations as, well, it's whatever I put on it. It's what I want to do. Behind me are their two Marine Corps plaques, which I am so proud of them. But again, we had to go through all of the uh, ups and downs and what you think and what's going to do this. I didn't say no way to the military. I didn't say you have to be a Marine. I didn't say you can't do it. We
Right.
talked about it as a family. We talked about it, the pitfalls, the pros, the cons, and they made the choice.
Right.
And they're both doing great. And I couldn't be more proud of them. And this is where I think parents are falling short. They already have a preconceived notion of what their kid is going to be or what they
Mm-hmm.
can't be,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And they tell them, you'll never do this. Who do you think you are? Our family doesn't do that. Um, we've never done that in our family. We do this, or that's for other people. Those are
Right.
terrible things to tell your kids. Terrible
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. We are limitless, and our children need to be given that message that they are limitless, no limits. Um, and we have to refrain from judging. We, as parents, we should not be judging any ideas that our kids have, even if we think they're crazy. Keep it to yourself. Like if your kid says, "I want to be a gamer, a full-time gamer," okay, okay,
That's a
honey,
big one.
that's
That's a
that's
big one.
awesome. Okay, but I also want you to be well-rounded. So I'm going to expose you to tennis and golf and like
Yep.
like that's the parent leadership part, right? It's like
Yep.
let's refrain from judgment, but let's also expose them to a lot of other things because they are going to change their minds. They do change their minds and they may pick something else, right? So I think that's
And
so
that's the
good.
thing. Yeah, that's the thing as parents. And I was watching a documentary tonight on David Beckham, and his father was a wannabe soccer player, didn't quite get to that level. He loved Manchester United. So when David came up, his dad put a ball in front of him at like 3 years old and drilled him and drilled him and drilled him. Now, he turned out to be David Beckham, the great soccer player, which I didn't even know who the guy was. I knew who his name, but I didn't know how he got there. So the documentary was very interesting. It was very well done.
Yeah.
But like Tiger Woods and
Yeah.
other amazing
Early.
athletes, these parents just drilled him, like Michael Jackson's parents, they drilled him and drilled him and drilled him. And yes, they're very successful, but at the same time, there were sides that, you know, maybe they weren't really, it was almost too adult. I mean, David
Yeah.
Beckham got signed, I think he was like 15 years old. So the pressure to be this top soccer player or footballer, they call it over there, was a lot for him, the different things. And he messed up at 22, 23. And so, and Tiger Woods, they have these, I think they have these mental breaks sometimes because of the amount of pressure put on them at such a young age to be what their parents want them to be. I want my boy successful. I think most parents want their kids to be successful, but what does it mean to be successful?
Right.
What does that definition of success mean to you? To me,
Hmm.
it means that my boys are self-sufficient. They can think, they can problem solve, they can handle their business, they can do what they have to do. I don't
Hmm.
expect them to be Tiger Woods. I don't expect them to be David Beckham. They're going to be successful in their own right. And as long as they're happy, healthy, and they're good people,
I'm
they
with you.
share their strengths and talents with others, and they lead other people, then I'm happy as can be as a
I'm with
dad.
you, Chris. I have the same I have the same attitude with my two boys.
It's
I love it. I love it.
it's just something I feel bad for young people that have these parents that either A are absent, or they're what I call a manager style parent, where it's all about them
Yeah.
and their needs. And
Yeah.
it's just horrible what we're doing to young people. And now you mentioned COVID earlier. Since COVID, we have had higher levels of attempted suicide. We've had higher levels of all the negatives, from depression, anxiety, attempted suicide,
Yeah.
because these kids now have that fear, like we talked about a second ago, and they
Hmm.
haven't learned how to overcome these normal things of life. Things are going to happen. Every generation has something that happens to them. For me, it was, um, you know, the explosion in 1986 of the Challenger, or I believe
Hmm.
it was the Challenger.
Yeah.
Then we had 9/11. Then we had,
Yes.
the Gulf War. So there's always these things in each generation that has something tragic,
Right.
but young kids today don't know how to handle anything. And that's where
Yeah.
they get these stereotypes, these negative stereotypes make it even worse. And there's so many for young people today that, I'm going to start doing podcasts. I was talking about today on my podcast. I've got several kids that are doing amazing things. One of the young ladies, Bree Burke, she's on a billboard in Times Square right now.
Wow.
And I have another young guy in Michigan who was the youngest elected official in Ingham County, Michigan. I have another young lady who got my film book, and she went to Atlanta to learn how to be a stunt person for 2 weeks. So she's getting into
Amazing.
the film doing stunts. She's like 19 years old.
Yeah.
So there's young people doing many, many great things, but we don't see that. All
Right.
we see is the negative, and I think that's a tragedy too, that we're only highlighting all the bad stuff. So we
Right.
tend to think that every young person is a horrible, scared,
Hmm.
trigger happy, hide in their room young person. That's not true either. So
Right.
we have to, as leaders, change that,
I'm with
for
you.
them as well.
I'm with you. Okay, let's go to question three. What are some
Okay.
of the regular problems you see facing parents and their expectations of their teen and or college graduate with working?
Oh gosh. Like we just been saying, the biggest thing is letting them go out and interview on their own and having a resume. A lot of people say,
Yes.
well, my kids never worked, so can't have a resume. That's a myth. That's again where volunteering comes in. Also,
Yes.
allowing them to figure out how to call a job and just ask how to apply, and go knock on a door and go talk to a supervisor. Today, most of them are going to be go apply online, do the whole, online application thing. But I also know a lot of employers that still want the old school come in, shake a hand, say hello,
Right.
and just introduce yourself.
Right.
A lot of parents today, again, I've seen parents walk in with their 18, 19, 20-year old to a
Hmm.
grocery store or one of the, another big giant retailer,
Hmm.
and say, this is my daughter, this is my son, he wants a job. And right away, the employer's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, daddy's got to come in with you. Um, I had a
I know.
29-year-old come into my workshop about a month and a half ago, and his father was with him. And I am trying to talk to the 29-year-old son, and his dad is interrupting and answering for him. I'm like, wait a minute, you're 29 years old. Why is your dad here? And before he could answer, the dad started answering. And again, I said, Dad, he's 29 years old. I mean, I need him to answer. I can't be rude and tell dad to leave because I get in trouble. But
Right.
I'm trying to allow this almost 30-year-old young man the ability to answer for himself. And finally, he was like, my dad's been answering for me my whole life. I'm the junior, so he feels like I was just like, oh my gosh, this kid was miserable.
Yeah.
And I say kid because he's only 29, 57, so he's a kid to me, but he was miserable.
Yeah.
And fortunately, because of the economy, he had to still live at home. He couldn't find a job paying enough to live on his own, which was his goal.
Right.
And every time that he would try and do something, it was almost as if the parents sabotaged him.
Yeah.
So that's another problem. They hold on to this idea that if the kid gets a job and moves out, I'll never see him again or something happens.
Yes.
There's a new term going around. I really have a problem with it. And it's this idea that it's called the emerging adult.
Hmm.
And I'll probably get in trouble here, so I apologize. But there was a lady on Instagram talking about the emerging adult. I reached out to her. She was basically making excuses. And I said, this is a problem that started 10, 15 years earlier. If a kid is 30 years old and is afraid or doesn't know how to move on, that's a problem that happened way before they're 29 years old.
Right.
And of course, she was making excuses. And there was some book that she was promoting from some, PhD. And I thought, wow, we are promoting now another belief system that if your kid isn't ready now at almost 30, and then, this happened to me, a kid 29 years old. So he walked in, I was like, oh my gosh. So we have this now generational problem
Yeah.
when it comes to the parents not allowing their kid to go get a job. They tell them, go get one, but then they step in. So
Yeah.
when it comes to the question of what can parents do or what's happening, they need to step away
Right.
and let them go find what they can do.
Right.
I was taught at 15 by my stepfather how to tie a tie. Okay. But he didn't go to job interviews with me. He didn't uh, do anything more than at home teach me some basic dad skills, which I think is important. That's something else that's happening. Parents are not teaching their kids the skills needed, like tying a tie, like the good eye contact, body language. Body
Yes.
language today in kids is, you know,
Yes.
and it annoys employers to death.
Yeah.
So all of these things can be taught at very early ages. All these things can be addressed. But again, the parent behavior has to change.
Yeah.
The parent behavior, this lack of leadership, this lack of accountability to helping your young person, as you said earlier, to grow
Yeah.
and to find themselves and to literally blossom into what they're supposed to be. It's almost
Mm.
like instead of pouring on fertilizer, parents are pouring on gasoline and then lighting
Yes.
the match and wondering why they're on fire. It
Yes.
just it hurts me to see it,
Yeah.
and it drives me to try and fix it. And I know, like with what you do, again, I love what you do and how you're
Thank
helping
you.
people with trauma and different things because it is true. If I'm messed up, how am I supposed to help my boys?
Yeah.
If I'm carrying a heavy burden, how am I supposed to, I'm having trouble with my own life. How am I supposed to help them?
Yeah.
As parents, we have to figure out a way to get through our own baggage, if you will. And we all
Hmm.
have it, we all carry something,
Hmm. Yeah.
but we can't burden our children with that.
Right.
It's not their, you know,
It's not their job
it's not their
to
job.
carry
Thank
our
you.
burdens.
It's not their job to carry our load. Yeah, and I think too many parents today have forgotten.
Yes.
And then when the kids can't do it because they don't know, they don't have the skills, they're not old enough, the parents then give them a hard time. You don't do, they're very narcissistic today. Parents are very
Yes.
narcissistic and they're teaching our children to just hate themselves.
Yeah.
So when it comes to employment, how the heck are they supposed to be good?
Yeah.
It's impossible. And
Yeah.
employers are frustrated. Employers want good workers. They
Yes.
want young people that are going to replace all the retirement age people. They want that, but what we're giving them is not worthy of the
Yeah. It's
job.
like they have to parent these adults, these young adults, because their parents didn't teach them these
100.
the basics of look at the person,
Yeah,
greet them hello, you know,
yeah.
like the
It's
basics.
it seems so simple when we talk about it. It's almost comical. But
Yeah.
when you see it every day, and I know you probably see it in your work as well, you just got to shake your head like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
And I've been saying it for 10 years, and I do believe a lot of it does have to do with the the phones, the digital devices, the things they can escape into. They
Yeah.
can compare lives online. They can, and this is proven now. We got a lot of studies today that are showing this, that, you know, the social media aspect of a child's development has been altered,
Yes.
and they're not getting the normal human experience because of these devices. And now
Yeah.
I see videos all the time of people much smarter than me saying, take your kid off the phone, take your kid out away from that device.
Yeah.
Let them go play, let them get dirty, let them stub their toe, let them chase a butterfly, let them do something we used to do as kids. Let them drink
Right.
from the water hose, like let
Yeah.
them be a child and learn and grow and explore. That's the best form of education.
I'm with
100
you.
best
I'm
form.
with you.
And when we put kids in front of a book, or we tell them, now learn this. Wow. But when I was a kid, I was looking out the window all the time. I was
Hmm.
called a daydreamer. You get your head out of the clouds, because I was always thinking, well, what can I do? And I wasn't following the norm.
Yeah.
I never have. I never
Yeah.
have. And I'm grateful for that now. It wasn't easy
Yeah.
growing up to not follow the norm.
I
But
know.
now it's like, I like to be an entrepreneur. I like to do different things. I just got
Yeah.
invited to be a speaker, you know, in Atlanta, September 21st at the Empower Success Fest. That's going to be on a
Nice.
Saturday. That's going to be awesome. And who would
Oh,
have
good.
thought, you know, wanting to be a speaker was like a dream for me. I've done 8 or 9 talks in the last couple of weeks. More and more things are happening. But had I believed years ago that I couldn't do something, or that I wasn't capable, I would never have taken the step to put myself out there, even at this
Right.
age, because of that internal fear that was created when I was 10.
Yes.
And this is what we're doing to young people. We are stopping their lifelong success with
Yes.
short-term lack of engagement on our part as parents. And I see it all the time. And it just kills me to see this,
Yeah.
because what kind of inventions will we never have? What kind
Yes.
of ideas are we will never know? If you think of
Mm.
what happened in the 1900s, late 1800s, with the explosion of the industrial age, the inventions that came out, all the great things, everything exploded after World War II.
Yeah.
When are we going to have that again? If it's not technology based, okay, great.
Right.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
We're not allowing kids to invent and to have an imagination. And
Yeah.
this is what's hurting them also.
Right.
One of the biggest complaints in the workplace is kids have no initiative. They're
Yeah.
told what to do, they stand there. Told what to do, they stand there. Told, and it drives bosses crazy.
Yeah.
Their work ethic is terrible because they don't know how. They never built one. They've never done anything.
Right. Yeah.
There's no accountability because someone else always did it for them. These
Yeah.
are all soft skills that employers want, and young people today have no idea what any of that is.
Right.
That's what's, and that all starts at the home.
I'm with you. I'm totally, totally with you. Oh, thank you, Chris. I mean, we could talk forever, right?
I know. I'm sorry I kept interrupting you, but
I
you get
love
me
it.
so excited that I got to jump in there. I don't mean to do
I
that, but
love it. I
it's
absolutely
just
love
something
it.
that happens.
Okay, I'm just going to do a recap from parents, and then I'm going to get you to tell the audience where they can find you, book you for a speaking gig. I don't know,
Okay,
whatever you want.
awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
so the first thing is, Chris was saying we can't do everything for our kids because then we're stifling them, and they're not going to be able to grow and do things on their own. And we need to be mindful of allowing them to do things for themselves when they're ready through the whole process of our parenting journey. And we got to be really careful with labeling. When we're saying our kid is anxious, our kid is shy, our kid is this, then we are labeling and that limits them. What they are today is not what they are tomorrow. They are continuing to grow, right? So we have to refrain from labeling. As parents, what can we do to help support them in their work life? Exposing them to volunteering opportunities, getting them to do service, getting them out, even if they're shy, exposing them so that you can see them grow, giving them opportunities for growth is so, so important. Asking them, what is your dream? Because your dream is not their dream. and they need to live their lives. And most of all, we can help them on the journey. Like we can encourage them to do their resume. We can encourage them to get opportunities, to apply for jobs, not do it for them. Encourage them to do it for themselves. Always giving them the message, you can do it. I know you can do it, right? That is going to be so impactful. And then teaching them the soft skills, exposing them to social situations. Uh, I know teaching manners, I know it's very old fashioned, but I think it's still so important in the workplace. Please, thank you. Looking people in the eye when you're talking to them. Those things are so, so important when you're in work life. So they need to learn it early. And we can do that as parents by modeling it and also encouraging it. Is that good, Chris? Did I cover most of it?
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was a great recap. That's very good. I'm sitting going, yep, it's taking some good notes. That's
Okay.
awesome.
All right. Christopher Mahan, please tell us, how do people reach you?
They can find me at leadyourteen, as in teenager, at gmail.com. My new website is being built, so I will let's go to all email. And my book is on Amazon. It's Seven Principles. Right here it is. You can see it. Looks just like
Wow.
this. So,
Beautiful.
seven principles, parental leadership, seven principles to lead your teen in digital age, and that'll be back up on Amazon very soon. I just changed an account, so we're changing the price a little bit. I thought it was so pricey, so we're changing the account a bit to bring it down a bit lower, so we can let
Nice.
everybody have this. And everything we talked about today is in this book, and I really appreciate you for allowing me to share that. So, lead your teen at gmail.com. I answer everything. You can send me a question. You can ask me just anything about what we talked about today. If you would like to book me for a speaking engagement, you can do that there too. And I will travel anywhere.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and I just want to let you know, parents, Chris's book is amazing. It's packed with information. He worked on it for like 10 years.
10 years.
So there's a
Yep.
lot of great information in
10 years.
this book. I love the book. I am highly recommending Chris's book for you people. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
I
you
appreciate
so much, Chris. And thank you, parents. I hope you got a lot of value and learned a lot. We are all on the parenting journey. There's no judgment. We're all learning. And I hope that this episode is going to help you in your parenting journey. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. See ya.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.